What is popping, Chop Squad? It's your local Kingdom hype boy, Slate D. Biggs, here for AnimeMCS to talk with you about Kingdom Chapter 631, The Red Stairway. The Red Stairway starts off with Shin and Kyokai in what is basically purgatory. Shin is just moments away from ascending a giant red staircase that turns out to be the staircase to hell. I'm on the stairway to hell. Kyokai is screaming and pleading for Shin to stop, but he doesn't hear her. He can't even see her because at one point he actually hears somebody calling out his name and he takes a look around. After he takes a look around, Hyo appears in front of Shin. At this point, Kyokai is being sucked into the ground like it's quicksand. She describes it as if trying to move through thick mud. And Shin and Hyo start to walk and get further and further from her, going directly towards the staircase. So, does this mean that Hyo hasn't moved on and he's been just staying in purgatory waiting to move on with Shin? Because that's fucking beautiful. So Shin is catching up with Hyo about his military career, and he recalls that he had a unit that he was the captain of, and they had 1,000 men or maybe more. He can't recall. His memories are fading. He even remembers being friends with the King of Qin. He can't remember how he ended up being friends with him, though, or even what his face looks like. It kind of looks like, exactly like the guy that you're talking to. They keep getting further and further from Kyokai, and she keeps screaming and pleading with Shin to stop and please hear her. But she continues to be bogged down. The last thing that Shin can recall about his life is that he had a dream, a plan, a goal that he was fighting hard for. The unification of China and to become a great general of the heavens. But he cannot even recall his dream. He says it doesn't matter, let's just move on. At this point, he cannot move. He's being held down by something, but he can't see what it is. And it turns out Kyokai managed to make her way to them and grab onto Shin. She screams, "Your unit's name was the He-Shin unit. Don't you ever forget it." And then she starts to remind him of what his dream was when her mouth is covered by Hyo's hand. And Hyo tells Kyokai that he has to remember by himself. Shin heard Kyokai yell the name of his unit. And then it's like everything comes back to him in a flood. He suddenly tells Hyo that he can't move on just yet. He hasn't completed their dream of becoming a great general of the heavens. So Hyo tells Shin, go through that light. You can still return. You have to go now. Suddenly, Shin sees Kyokai on the ground, holding him. And he asks her what the hell she's doing there, how long has she been there, and she says she's been there for a while now. Hyo even thanks Kyokai for putting in her help, and tells her that he had a limited role he could play in getting Shin to remember and leave purgatory and go back to the living world. It kind of reminds me of the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. So Orpheus and Eurydice were madly in love. Eurydice passed away early due to outside circumstances. So she goes down into hell. And because Orpheus is a demigod, he gets protection from his father to go down into hell and plead with Hades to let him take his dear love out of hell. He sings them a beautiful song, And Hades basically tells him, you can take her out, but you have to only walk out of hell. That's all you have to do, is walk out. Don't turn around. Don't look at her. You cannot turn around and look at her, or she will be pulled back into hell. So Orpheus gets so close. He's basically climbing out of hell, but he's doubting himself. He turns to look and see if Eurydice is still there for real, and she gets dragged back down into hell. But where the Shin and Kyokai story differs, or the Shin and Hyo story differs, is that Kyokai was there to be an outside force. It's like if something was there to keep Orpheus's head straight and tell him he cannot look backwards. That's like the extra role that Kyokai played in this. And it's beautiful. Kyokai embraces Shin with a deep hug. Not sure if she can get out herself. She then pushes him through the light. After she pushes him through the light, she loses all of her strength, and she falls all the way down onto the ground, and she starts sinking in, surely stuck. But then, the chapter continues to hit you in the feels when Shosa and Kyogai appear beside Kyokai. They lift her up. They couldn't recall exactly what they needed to do, but whenever they went into purgatory, they had a feeling like they had to stay to do something. They even have a ridiculous banter back and forth, just like they would if they were living, which really lightens the tension. Basically, they tell Kyokai to keep an eye on the captain, and they throw her through the light as well. Now we go back to the living world, where everyone is screaming and bawling their eyes out. The whole Haishin unit, I'm assuming all of the around 8,000 men, are screaming, Shin, Shin, wake up. Man, it hits you hard. Everybody's bawling, and then they're so caught up in their chant, it's like Shin stands up suddenly out of nowhere, and they can't believe their eyes. Like, this panel of Kario 10 is one of the funniest faces I've seen in Kingdom for a while. Probably since the great Heki face. So good. So yeah, Shin stands up like nothing happened, and all of the tension that was built up the whole chapter is like let go in a relief with a good old dwah! So that brings this whole purgatory reincarnation debacle to a close. Looking back on it, I think I appreciate it a little bit more because there's a sort of mysticism in history. So it's not strange for elements like this to show up in an old story of legend. That's just kind of part of how things go. And it makes it more exciting. And it could just be a metaphor for Shin going into a slight coma and then waking up. But either way, it turned out to be beautiful. I'm glad it's over finally and we can move on. I'm glad that Kyokai and Shin are definitely coming back. I didn't think there was any way Shin was going to stay dead. But it was possible that Hara was actually going to kill Kyokai off right here. But I really wouldn't have advised that. I think it would have blew the community up. We would have had riots. The subreddit would have been burning down, boys. This is a beautiful chapter. Since it was released, I've probably read through it 4 or 5 times. I really enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope that you're as ready as I am to move on and finally see what's going to happen with Gyo and the next arc. Do you think that Riboku is going to show up to Gyo and Kanki is going to be smiling down at him with chin flags hanging all over the walls? How do you think that's going to turn out? Because I don't think there's any way Riboku can save Gyo at this point. Because even though he got away, how much of his army is left? Conky's men might be running out of food, maybe, but they're fresh. They haven't been fighting for 2 weeks straight. Leave a like on the review and subscribe to the channel if you love your Kingdom content. I would greatly appreciate it. There is no break next week, so I will see you guys later. Peace out.